Welcome to another video. This time we will address some teachings that Buddha left us through this story. Teachings such as overcoming doubts, trust in community, moral discipline and renunciation of attachment are today's themes that are shown to help you gain more wisdom and enlightenment. Stay until the end of the story, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can share with you more of Buddha's teachings and fantastic stories. So let's get started. Once upon a time, in the time of the Buddha, there lived a young man named Ananda, who lived in a small village surrounded by vast fields. Like many in his village, Ananda cultivated the land, hoping his harvest would bring sustenance to his family and community. However, no matter how hard he tried, his field never produced a satisfactory harvest. The earth seemed stubborn, dry and rocky, unable to nourish the seeds he planted. Ananda felt frustrated, full of doubts and discouragement. One day, upon returning from farming, Ananda heard about a sage who was in the neighboring village, the Buddha. He had heard many stories about this master, who had helped countless people find peace and purpose in life. Determined to seek guidance, Ananda traveled to the village, eager to hear the Buddha's teachings. Upon arriving at the place where the Buddha was, Ananda joined a large crowd. With a heart full of hope, he approached and asked the Buddha to teach him how to improve his harvest and, most importantly, how he could cultivate a more meaningful and fulfilling life. The Buddha, with his calm voice, smiled at the young man and began to share a story. "Ananda," began the Buddha, "just as the soil must be prepared to bear fruit, a person's mind must also be cultivated properly so that it can flourish in wisdom and peace. There are 5 fallow grounds in the mind that hinder the growth of true knowledge, just as stones and drought prevent a good harvest. The first of these wastelands," continued the Buddha, "is doubt about the farmer himself. Just as a field cannot prosper if the farmer does not believe in himself, a mind cannot grow if it doubts the Buddha, the one who points the way to enlightenment. If you don't believe that you can be guided, you won't be able to advance on the journey." Ananda, attentive, began to understand that his own insecurity could be an obstacle in his life, not only in cultivating the land, but in everything he did. "The second uncultivated ground," continued the Buddha, "is doubt about the tools you use. Dhamma, my teachings, are the tools I give you to cultivate the mind. But if you doubt them, how can you expect to reap good fruit?" The Buddha looked into Ananda's eyes, seeing that he was beginning to realize how his own doubts had been a great impediment in his life. "The third uncultivated ground is doubt about the community," said the Buddha. "Just as a field cannot be well tended by a single man, spiritual practice should not be done in isolation. The Sangha, the community of practitioners, is your support. But if you doubt them, you isolate yourself and weaken, just as the soil dries up without irrigation." Ananda felt a weight in his heart as he recognized that he had always felt alone in his search, not trusting others to help him. "The fourth uncultivated ground," continued the Buddha, "is resistance to moral disciplines. Just as the field needs constant irrigation and care, the mind needs to be guided by morality and discipline to remain fertile. If you rebel against it, your mind becomes dry and sterile." Ananda remembered the times when he ignored moral precepts, thinking they were obstacles rather than guides, and he began to see how this harmed his life. "And lastly," said the Buddha, "the fifth uncultivated ground is attachment to sense desires. Just as weeds choke out good plants, worldly desires choke the mind. If you cling to them, your mind will not have room to grow and blossom in wisdom and compassion." Ananda, with a heart full of understanding, clearly saw the obstacles that he himself had placed in his path. After hearing these words, Ananda thanked the Buddha and returned to his village, determined to prepare not only his land, but also his mind, for true growth. He began to cultivate faith in the teachings, trust in the community, moral discipline, and renunciation of the desires that had imprisoned him. Over time, his field blossomed, and so did his mind. He understood that just as the field needed constant care, his mind also needed to be cultivated to achieve peace and wisdom. And so, Ananda reaped a bountiful harvest, both in his land and in his spiritual life. He learned that the uncultivated grounds of the mind can be worked and transformed, and that in doing so, it is possible to achieve true freedom and inner peace. Through this story, these were the main teachings: overcoming doubts, have faith in the path and the teachings, as doubt is the first obstacle to spiritual progress. Trust in the community, don't isolate yourself, rely on the support of the community, Sangha, to strengthen your practice. Moral discipline, follow moral precepts to keep your mind pure and receptive. Renunciation of attachment, free yourself from sensory desires that entangle the mind and prevent it from growing. With these teachings, the Buddha shows us that by diligently preparing and cultivating our mind, we can overcome all obstacles and achieve true inner peace.
Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to bring more videos and stories like this.